In today's video, we're going to make our first mash in the 20-gallon insulated and heated mash tun that we built in the live stream, in the Shine Along live stream. If you missed it, there is a replay. I'll put that card at the end of this video if you want to go watch it. I'm going to do this a little bit differently than I normally do. I'm going to use the super simple beginner mash recipe. I'm going to do a 15-gallon batch, and how it's going to be different is I'm going to put all the grain inside of the mash tun first, and then I'm going to bring the water to a boil. I'm going to add the sugar to the boiling water, and then I'm going to dump that boiling water onto the grain, and I'm going to lightly stir it up, and I'm going to let it set overnight, and then I'm going to check the temperature and pitch the yeast whenever the temperature naturally falls down to 90 degrees. So that's what we're going to do. Let's get into it. Okay, another thing that I'm going to do that's going to be a little bit different is the super simple beginner mash recipe calls for basically 3/4 pound of sugar per gallon of water, and that's a low specific gravity. And the reason I do that for the beginners is that makes it really easy to ferment so that you're not having to worry about it crashing or anything like that. And so this time I'm going to do 2 pounds of sugar per gallon of water. We're doing a 15-gallon batch like I said before, and so there's going to be 30 pounds of sugar. This is 15 pounds of water, although it's not all water because I used 1 gallon of back set per 5 gallons of water. So there's actually 3 gallons of back set and 12 gallons of water in this pot, and I'm going to bring it to a boil. Okay, so the grain is in there, and this is about boiling, I believe. Definitely have a strong boil going, so I'm going to turn off the heat and add in the sugar. That was 25 pounds of sugar. Now half of this bag, which is a 10-pound bag, that'll be 30 pounds of sugar, equaling 2 pounds per gallon. Now we're going to stir it up. Definitely want to make sure this is dissolved. Oh my gosh. I didn't have to stir it at all. That is dissolved. I don't feel any sugar in there. Okay, so it's the next morning, and it hadn't got down to 90 yet. These are just sitting on top of the plastic, but it'll still register if there's a... It's still pretty warm. I haven't opened it since yesterday when I dumped the boiling water in, and it's still not down to 90 degrees, and it got down to 33 degrees last night. So the insulated mash tun seems to be working well. Just now down to 90-ish so that I can pitch the yeast. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Checking the specific gravity, and it's, I don't know if you can read it, but it's right around 1080 And it's probably a couple points off because it's 90 degrees and instead of at the 60 degree calibrated temperature. And I'm going to toss in a handful of oyster shell, crushed oyster shell. And of course we used 1 gallon for every 5 gallons of back set to help maintain the pH, because since we're at such a high gravity with a sugar wash, these are prone to crash if you're not careful. So that's why we're taking all these little extra steps. And for the yeast, I'm not even measuring the yeast. It's about a tablespoon per 5 gallons is a good rule of thumb. I keep my yeast, we keep it in this little, I think it's like a salad dressing Tupperware deal, but it works really well. So about 4 tablespoons, give or take. It is nearly impossible to use too much yeast. And for the yeast, I'm not even measuring the yeast. It's about a tablespoon per 5 gallons is a good rule of thumb. I keep my yeast, we keep it in this little, I think it's like a salad dressing Tupperware deal, but it works really well. So about 4 tablespoons, give or take. It is nearly impossible to use too much yeast. Okay, I gave that a vigorous stir just to make sure it's oxygenated well. And now we'll just put the cap on it. Okay, it's the next morning. It was 39 degrees for the high last night. And the airlock is not working. So I have a leak on the fermenter because if I put my ear to the lid, I can hear the bubbling going on inside. Let's take a look at that. Okay, so as you can see, the ferment's very happy. Lots of bubbling going on in there. So I've got a leak on the fermenter lid. It's not sealing. That's why the airlock isn't working. So once this ferment is done, I'll see if I can solve that problem, make a video of that in case you guys have the same issues with these kinds of buckets.